So the growth of the Reynolds team over the last few years, which has really been me dialing into how I use my time to make sure I'm focused on quantum leaps in the business. In 2014, we did 41 million in sales volume, which equaled to about 1.1 million in GCI. In 2015, we did 70 million, which equaled out to be about 2.2 million in GCI. And then as you can see, the growth every single year, we grew about $1 million in GCI each year. Some years we've grown 2 million. And this year right now, we're on pace to do 340 million in volume, which equals out to about 10.5 million in gross commission income. So this is something that Todd has said a lot. And every time he says it, I think a lot about my routine. So he says a lot, your routine is a direct correlation between the results that you get. So how you're managing and using your time, if you don't like the results that you're getting, most likely it's because of how you're managing your time, how you're handling the time that you have. I remember last January, I'm a big believer in tracking numbers and looking at numbers on a daily basis now. I used to do it like weekly and monthly. If you looked at January of 2018 compared to January of 2017, our business was down. And as you can see from looking at our numbers, we're pretty used to having growth. And so I about flipped out. I texted Todd this SOS text of like, my business is going under, like, because we weren't growing. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, this isn't good. And I get on the phone with him and he said, what have you been doing with your time? And I was like, huh. And he said, so tell me the last few months, what have you been focusing on? So I start going over it and I quickly realized that I had been spending my time on management stuff, not entrepreneurial, growing the business stuff. And I immediately changed my routine. And then we were able to end the year very much up compared to the year before, but I had to change my routine. Many times, if you're not getting the result, it's about the way that you're spending your time. It's no one else's fault. It's the way that you're spending your time and making sure that you're focused on the things that are going to make you a quantum leap. So what are the rainmaking activities? So the 5 things that we need to be focusing on when we're running a real estate company. The first is to cherry pick the leads. So Craig Proctor, up until when he sold his real estate company, he was still calling leads. So he was cherry picking the leads that he would call. I believe he would call Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday mornings, and cherry picking the leads. The second thing is cherry picking the appointments. So choosing which appointments to go on would be a good use of your time. Third is you want to always be recruiting. As you can see, if you look back to the Reynolds team organization, if we weren't always recruiting, this would not exist. So we have to constantly be looking for talent. We look for talent everywhere we go. When we're at a restaurant, when we're shopping, when we're just going around with our normal business, if we see people that match the Reynolds team values and that are talented, we are going to recruit them. So that's third. Fourth is work on and measuring your marketing. So working on the business, which our business, we're in a lead generation business, a marketing business, right? And then fifth is training your team to where the more you can train your team, the better your conversion rates are. The better your conversion rates are, the more profitable you're going to be and the bigger return you're going to be on the investments that you're making. Those are the 5 rainmaking activities. Anything outside of these 5 is not making you a quantum leap. So just think back over the last week. How much time did you spend on cherry picking the leads, cherry picking the appointments, recruiting, working on marketing and measuring marketing and training your team? And if there's not a lot of time spent, then that might be the reason you're not getting the result that you want. So again, your routine is going to equal your result. So let's talk about cherry picking the leads. So I talked about this a second ago. So Craig Proctor, who is the founder of the whole system that has grown my company and has helped me change so many lives, always called back leads. So how he would cherry pick the leads and how our recommendation is for cherry picking the leads is that you want to, those high dollar leads, so like the call-in from sellers, or if you know a marketing source that's getting high quality leads, that's typically the ones that you want to call back. Now, those type of leads, it's more important for the who that calls them back versus the speed of calling them back. So what you want to do is you want to have a system to where you're calling them, you block your time out where you're going to call the highest priority leads, and that's what you do at that time no matter what. So Craig had 3 days a week, right? So you're going to cherry pick the leads and then pick the time that you're going to call them back. The second thing is to cherry pick the appointments. So every appointment that gets booked, you first want to look at it and say, is this an appointment I should go on, right? Are they really motivated to move? If they're really motivated to move and it might be a pretty easy appointment, you want to go on that appointment because that's not going to take a lot of your time and you're going to get a huge return on the time that you're spending on that appointment. You don't want to give that to an outside sales agent. You want to first take it. So you're going to cherry pick. So part of cherry picking is knowing what is a prime appointment in your company. What is the prime appointment that your ISAs book? And making sure that you are the one to go on those appointments. Third is work on measuring marketing. So working on and then measuring the marketing you're doing. A lot of my time today is spent on this. I am a marketer. You are a marketer. Okay, we are a marketer. Okay, so our job is to focus on marketing materials and then measuring them. So doing one ad as like the control and then running another ad that's going against it to see which one is going to be better. Is this headline better or is this headline better? Is having this picture better or is this picture better? And constantly be measuring to see what is the best that you can do in terms of lead generation and marketing. This is something that is a huge rainmaking activity. Fourth is to always be recruiting. So I talked about that briefly already, but my existence is 100% because of the team, meaning like the business is because of the team that we built. Without them, the Reynolds team doesn't exist. And so much of this is about recruiting and recruiting the right people. For our team, it's all about the values that people possess and making sure that they live up to the Reynolds team values. And the majority of our time is spent recruiting those that live up to our values and making sure that they want to work with our team. And so we have a recruiting event that we do at least once a month, sometimes more. We're always recruiting, even if don't have a position filled. So even for our administrative positions, even if we don't have a position filled, we want to be filling the bench because at any point that team member might decide not to work with us or we might decide not to work with them. Or the other piece of it is that as we grow, many times people are replacing themselves because they're on to the next opportunity on our team because we're consistently growing. So if we're not always recruiting the next person and filling the bench, we're not going to have the team that we have today. And so you want to always, always, always be recruiting. This is actually probably the one that was the hardest for me personally. Cherry picking the leads and going on the appointments and working on marketing and training, I really got. But to be honest, anytime someone talked about recruiting at the Craig Proctor events, I would fight it. For some reason, I have a lot of S in my disc personality and like the idea of getting really big and change and stuff like that, I was constantly sort of fighting that. And really a lot of our growth happened when I just gave in to like, hey, if we're going to have a real impact on the world, if we're going to have a real impact on our industry, we've got to always be recruiting. So we have to always be looking for new team family members. And then the fifth is training your team. 3 years ago, I would do conversion calls. I think I've talked about this at some of the conferences. But if one of my agents brought back a listing agreement that wasn't signed, I would call the seller and just see how we can earn their business. And our conversion stayed, I would help change the outcome. But what I realized is I wasn't spending as much time on training the team. So on Fridays, I started something that's called conversion training. So this was like a year or two ago. And about a year ago, I stopped doing the conversion calls and focused on training my team to make them better. And what has happened is our conversion has actually gone up with my focus on training the team. So we can either do the job for people, which the conversion calls were doing the job for them, or we could train them to do it better. And so we focus heavily on training our team now, and so much so that we're actually now training once a day, an hour training of our sales team to make sure that by 2021, the Reynolds team will be the best trained sales force in America because we are focusing so heavily on training. So those are the 5 rainmaking activities. Those are the 5 things that we should be focused on.